So it's about blame. Blame, blame, blame. I don't know if you guys are aware of blame that's happening quite a bit more. Are we getting more involved in a blame culture? Something that I notice a lot is I do listen to the radio, and so often there are adverts saying, um, yeah, a lot of blame adverts, a lot of people out there to try and get claims for all sorts. And yeah, I'm kind of getting aware of things. I wonder what you're sensing. Hey, Fiona. Hey, Richard. So, blame, what is it? It's when we declare that someone or something outside of us has done wrong, there's a fault that's happened. So, we're either going to declare it, so say it out loud, or it's something that we're going to feel and we're going to keep it stum. Won't say things, won't say it out loud, yet at the same time, we believe that something or someone outside of us has done a wrong. So, there's a fault to be had. So, we're going external. So we're handing responsibility to someone or something else. So the problem with this is that when there's blame, there's pain. And often the emotion that comes up with blame can quite often be anger, resentment. I'm not sure what else you could link it in with. And something as simple as anger, well, anger only taints the vessel that it's brewed in. And that's quite a pertinent saying. You know, when we're in a blame response, whether we are blaming someone or we are being blamed by somebody, it triggers a stress response. And the stress responses impact on how we see things. So, one of the key elements of our stress response is blood shunting. So, our digestive system is compromised, we're not healing and repairing, our immune system switched off, our blood goes from our thinking to our small brain. And our vision goes from a relaxed peripheral, being able to see all around us, to a very narrow focus, tunnel vision, small perception. So there are lots of impacts on when we're in a blame, receiving blame, giving blame. And whether it's a short term, whether it's long term, it still has a physiological impact and it's a bit negative. And blame can cause a bit of a cycle. So, what I wanted to do was just share some ideas that could perhaps allow us to look a little bit differently on blame and also highlight us into how people can get stuck. Hey, Charlotte. I mentioned a minute ago about the peripheral vision, how it changes when we're stressed. So, we're in a blame, we're angry, we're able to see all around us, and it goes from there into a very narrow focus. So, immediately that this happens, we haven't got the ability to look beyond the problem. A natural physiological response of being in this stress blame capacity is that we can't see beyond. So perhaps this can give a little bit of awareness how someone can stay stuck, they can keep blaming, and it can just cause a continual spiral. Some really interesting information came about when I watched a TED talk by Lyra Boroditsky. I hope I've said her name right. She's a cognitive scientist. She was discussing a lot about language and how language shapes our perception and specifically can shape our perception of events. So I'm going to go into the event of an accident. So an accident being there was no intention behind it, all right? So it was unintentional. In English, so picture this, we've got a guy, his shopping's on the floor, he bends over to pick up his shopping and his bum bumps a table and a really nice glass falls off and shatters. Completely unintentional, right? In our English language, it's okay for us to say, he broke the glass. In another language, such as Spanish, they'll say the glass broke because it was an accident. So this is all relative to grammar. If it's an accident in Spanish, there is no one else. It's just the glass broke. And in English, it's all right for us to say him. So this insight alone, our language the way that we communicate can impact on the perception of a happening, of a situation. When you look at it, sorry, I'm getting beeps coming up. When you also look at it through, when somebody breaks a limb, breaks an arm, breaks a leg, they say, I broke my arm, I broke my leg. Now, coming from a different country and a different language, a direct translation of this would mean the person is an absolute lunatic because they have gone and broken their own arm. So just with this bit of grammar, can you get a sense of the impact that language can have on the blame culture, on our perception of things? And also, can you get a sense of how this could impact on perhaps getting evidence when people see a situation, how it can possibly misconstrue someone's perception when they say that he broke the vase, all of a sudden, or broke the glass, all of a sudden somebody's going to be looking for him, looking at him. And when someone said the glass was broke, well, straight away they've got the opportunity, without tunnel vision, they've got the opportunity to take in all the information, all the evidence, and make an objective, unbiased gauge of it all. Okay, so one of the biggest things, I mentioned blame culture. And something that kept coming up about the blame culture was our ability to be accountable for actions. So blame is an external sourcing for a problem, for a wrongdoing, for a fault. So straight away, we're passing the buck, so to speak. What if we were to become a bit more accountable as a society, as a race? We were able to perhaps take away the he or she did it. Perhaps just recognize that we might be in a bit of a stress response and not able to see beyond the problem. And just step up and become more accountable. Becoming accountable also links in with vulnerability. And vulnerability is, quite a key thing, in a sense that it's difficult for people to expose their weaknesses, to expose possible failures or mistakes. We see it as a negative. When many of you watching this, I know, are going to be so clued up and know that there is no such thing as failure, only feedback. And some of our biggest challenges and biggest learnings have come through perceived mistakes, when actually they've turned into challenges and allowed us to learn heaps and move forward in ways that we perhaps might not have conceived before. When we become accountable, we take responsibility. When we take responsibility, I hope the screen isn't backwards, but when we take responsibility, it gives us the opportunity to, so it's responsibility and the ability to respond, pausing, taking time. The moment we realize that we could be pointing the finger, we could be blaming, just literally pause. It is a natural reaction of humans to blame. It's a natural part of who we are. So always being grateful and acknowledging and having an awareness, honoring the fact that we're human. And the moment we think we might be blaming or pointing the finger, well, just have a look at how many fingers are pointing back at us when we do it. The moment we check in with this, we interrupt because we become curious, we become aware. The moment we become aware, we become present. When we become present, we can't do the judging, we can't be reacting based on previous old experiences. And the moment this happens, then we interrupt that stress cycle. So we go from that potential tunnel vision to being able to see with a relaxed peripheral softening of the eyes. So we can bring in more information. We can be open to new, impartial information that could allow the whole perception of the event, situation to change. And what if just by, again, recognizing when we're pointing the finger and the three are back, perhaps one of them is just the fact that our language, our grammatical language has caused us to recognize and allocate it to someone or something else. So, just a few ways to be able to look at the potential possibility of how blame seems to have spiraled perhaps out of control. Blaming also causes us to miss the opportunity of empathy. Sometimes we can be in a conversation with somebody and we can be hearing their story and we can feel their anger perhaps and be frustrated and want to join in with them. And what if that actually took away the opportunity to give that person what they needed in that moment, which was perhaps just an ear? Maybe they didn't need us to take sides or blame or do anything. Maybe they just needed an ear, an empathetic ear. So it can cause us to miss the opportunity of a real connection with somebody. What if we weren't blaming? What if there was no blame? Who would we be then? In a situation where there's potential for blame, just suppose we didn't and there wasn't any. Who might we be then? And what opportunities could this bring up for us? As a society, imagine if there was less blame. In our culture, our Western culture, imagine if there was a much reduced amount of blame. How would we be different? How could beyond ourselves be responding? What if there was no blame at all? Who would we be then?